This is not banter when I say this. This is not jokes. I kid you guys not. I was up till like 3:30 a.m. last night, guys, watching footage. Now, I'll tell you guys why. Like, it's not that I just started wicked late. I was watching footage on it. I told myself I was going to, like, late at night where I was going to start watching. But I thought it was going to be one of those things. I watch footage and I'm like, okay, it confirms a lot of things I believe, which some things were confirmed. But, and if you guys didn't know, I had Ciryl Gane going into my full card prediction. But, like, dude, the more I was watching footage, I started out with Pereira footage. I was like, okay, yeah, the cons are what I think they were. There's some other things I'm noticing Pereira does, that aren't good. There's some things he does that are really good. And then I went to Ciryl Gane's footage and, like, I always knew Ciryl Gane was good, but, like, I started watching things and I was like, oh my God, this is a lot more complicated than I think it is, man. And I know this fight was competitive. I knew this fight's close. I know this fight's 50-50. I know it's competitive to an extent, but I'm telling you, like, when I made that full card prediction video, I was kind of under the impression that Ciryl Gane should win. Like, he should win, but now it's like, ooh. So let's get into the stylistic breakdown, guys, and I'm just going to be honest. At the end of the video, I'm going to say my official pick. So stay tuned to it. You guys know my stylistic breakdowns. I get really in detail and I just say how it is, and I will say this. When I click record, I didn't have a winner, but I did give myself a note in the last slide to remind me something, and we're going to see what that is when we get to it. But without further ado, let's talk about Alex Pereira and Ciryl Gane and what might just happen on Saturday night. There's big stakes, If he becomes triple champ, I'm talking about Pereira. If he becomes triple champ, guys, he might be the GOAT. If Ciryl Gane beats Alex Pereira, he's going to be looked at as one of the most untouchable strikers of all time. Let's get into things to note first, starting with Alex Pereira, guys. Things to note, he struggles against elite kickboxing and Muay Thai. Take that with a grain of salt, what I just said there. He's moving up the weight class, which is going to make him slower. Southpaws give him trouble. If you guys didn't know, Ciryl Gane's a southpaw. And questionable training partners. These are just things I had to note when I was thinking about this fight, because it's a fight so close, you have to note things like this. Now, the first take when I said he struggles with elite kickboxing and elite Muay Thai, these are the only people he fought with elite Muay Thai in that MMA. Khalil Roundtree, Jan Blachowicz. Those are two fighters who have elite Muay Thai. And on the feet, he tend to struggle with the low kicks of them specifically, and like the straight punches of them, because like Muay Thai fighters, they check low kicks well, they have good low kicks, and they have good straights. Of course, we know Ciryl Gane has a Muay Thai and kickboxing background, extensive on both ends, so he kind of does both of those pretty well. And then as for kickboxers, we know against Israel Adesanya, he's lost majority of the rounds, but he has that equalizer. And at 185, you have the equalizer when you're cutting from 185, then bulking back up to 220 on fight night, having significant size and power advantage over these guys. So he did have that one punch power. Not really one punch power with Pereira, but like he did catch Izzy in the 5th round. Izzy was still moving, but he still ultimately got the finish, TKO. And moving up weight, I think it's going to make him slower, which is going to take some of that speed away, which kind of goes back to the ladderman skill narrative. I don't know how much the ladderman skill narrative is going to work against Ciryl Gane, because like I said before, guys, Ciryl Gane's not your typical heavyweight. There's some heavyweights that actually like move like blobs. So if a light heavyweight went up and fought them, the ladderman skill will be prevalent. I don't think it's going to be as prevalent as people think it's going to be. So I think moving up in weight is going to make him slower, which negatively affects the ladderman skill narrative that a lot of people ride with. And then southpaws give him trouble, guys. Like it's just dangerous about how like Ciryl Gane's a southpaw primarily. You probably wouldn't know that. Watching footage, he fights in multiple stances, but of course, southpaw is his primary stance. So these are just things I want you guys to know about Pereira as I go through this breakdown. I say things. Always have these 4 things to note in the back of your head when I'm saying my takes. Moving off to things to note for Ciryl Gane, eye pokes and dirty tactics. I'm not joking. These, the more I watch Ciryl Gane, I don't think anyone does anything intentionally, but these French fighters, like I noticed with the Mavov, Ciryl Gane, they're comfortable like extending their fingers, and kicking people in the balls, taking some breaks. They do this. He's also fought heavier hitters than Alex Pereira. I'm just saying this because if people are in like have the notion that Pereira's like, oh, he's gonna one punch Ciryl Gane and knock him out, that's not a good mindset to have. I don't think you should have the mindset thinking Pereira is going to be the world-renowned power that he's never stood in front of. He stood in front of Francis Ngannou. He stood in front of Tuivasa. These guys have more knockouts than him. Even Tom Aspinall has a more bigger knockout threat, given the amount of finishes he's having in a UFC career compared to Alex Pereira. So don't think this is like the hardest puncher that Ciryl Gane's ever stood in front of. These are natural heavyweights with actual one-punch power that Ciryl Gane's in front of. Alex Pereira is a light heavyweight / middleweight, who never really had one punch power in MMA. So if you have the notion or the narrative that Alex Pereira has the most power that Ciryl Gane's ever had, just take that out of your brain. You're wrong. Moving on from that, he never faced an elite kickboxer, and he's used to fighting blobs. I noticed him when watching like his Spivak fight. Like, he gets away with a lot, guys. And this is like one of the more eye-opening things. He gets away with a lot because he's fighting kind of like blobbish fighters. Like fighters who don't move that well. Fighters who are kind of stationary targets to an extent when like the pace gets put on them. Like, I'm not saying Spivak's like a wicked, slow, horrible blob, or like Tuivasa and some of these guys, but let's be real, they're just chubby. So a lot of them are just out of shape people who hit hard and move fairly well for their size. Alex Pereira is going to be the best elite, the most elite kickboxer he's stood in front of. That's including Ngannou. Ngannou's a great striker, don't get me wrong. He's a lot more loopy-doopy than a fucking Alex Pereira, though. So, like, he hasn't really faced someone like Alex Pereira, and I want people to know that, because the more I watch this footage, the more I'm like, yo, you're getting away with a lot, eh? Because you're not going against someone that elite. The most elite striker overall, I guess you could say it's Tom Aspinall, because he's explosive and he moves well, but even that's not quite Alex Pereira kickboxing level. Then I said he hypnotizes opponents. This is things to note. He hypnotizes opponents to fight at his rhythm. It's so prevalent in the Tom Aspinall fight. Like, he always, how Ciryl Gane always bounces around. He convinces his opposition to let him take those breaks. When he's bouncing around, guys, it's kind of for him to like take his base and like control the pace. He's bouncing around to control pace, to help him by making you do less and almost mimicking his bounce. While you're doing that, he's just finding your timing and he's taking a break. So he controls things very well by hypnotizing his opponents, by getting to that little hop thing, and then he makes you guys do it too. When I was watching that, like watching a lot of his footage back, I was like, holy shit, he does it a lot. If he needs to reset, he'll start bouncing and stuff, and the people in front of him like kind of take that like, oh, I'll chill too. You're chilling, I'll chill. So they almost bounce with him, and like half these guys aren't even used to doing that. They don't really move like that, but suddenly they're in front of him kind of like taking time. I seen Ngannou do it. I seen Aspinall do it. A lot of these guys, man, I've been seeing when they stand in front of Ciryl Gane, they almost get hypnotized and let him take breaks. It's a little bit weird to me. And then I said his only losses have been due to wrestling. I do think this is important to note, because it seems like it must be something different when you're in front of Ciryl Gane. He must be very hard to hit, which I do think he is, because every single person who stood in front of him and they try to strike, it just doesn't go their way for the most part. So they have to use wrestling to somewhat make it competitive, like the Volkov fight, or to beat him, like the Francis Ngannou fight and the John Jones fight, And it's obviously a no-brainer that Alex Pereira doesn't have wrestling. So these are things to note for both guys. Some things are good that I'm noting, and some things are bad. But let's get into the stylistic breakdown, starting with the striking of Alex Pereira. Great low kick. It's his best weapon. This is hands down his best weapon, his low kick. I don't know why people try to outdo the left hook, dude. Are you a cat? Like, his best weapon, his most used weapon and utilized weapon has to be his low kick. He's not like Adesanya, who's going to like never throw a low kick like he did in the DDP fight to change his game plan. He's always going to establish the low kick because it gets people, it hurts people. It stops their movement, which is big in a fight like this. He also has solid pull and slip counters. Like, he'll pull counter you, he'll slip counter you. He's a rhythmic counter striker. His speed had a lot to do with that. I do think his speed might take a hit. So like I said, the things to note is he might be a little bit slower. But even then, I still think his pull counters are still going to be there, especially if he gets a rhythm going. Also said he has a sneaky head and body kick. He be whipping that head kick, guys, and it's so sneaky. I feel like Yuri Prochazka, that fight showed us that like it could actually be has finishing ability attached to it. But he throws it a lot. Most people see it coming and they use their forearm to like stop it. But like then again, it's just hurting their forearms, and their forearms are taking a beating, which like takes sting away from their punches. But his sneaky head kick is actually really good, guys. And someone like Ciryl Gane is susceptible to like almost ducking into head kicks, because he's kind of sporadic when he's defending. So I actually do think the head kick and the body kick could be something big he could use to exploit the movement of Ciryl Gane in a fight like this. Also, his pressure and presence. It was most prevalent in the Ankle Live rematch, watching it back. Like, the presence he puts on people, it almost makes people panic and like almost puts them in a standstill, when he's coming at you, and like he's just very intimidating in there and people feel it. He's usually the bigger guy in these instances, which I feel like adds to the pressure and presence. But like, he's not going to be the bigger guy here, but I still think he can get away with like kind of being imposing in there against Ciryl Gane. And I think he needs to be imposing against Ciryl Gane, because if he's kind of just doing what he did against Ankle Live, kind of taking pictures because it's a southpaw and he's a little bit uncomfortable. I'm talking about the first fight. Like, against Ankle Live in the first fight, he's almost taking pictures and getting paused and like kind of standing in front of him, and he kind of let Ankle Live dictate the pace. The thing that's scary about that is that Ankle Live can make people dictate the pace because he's a counter striker, so he has people hesitant. If Alex Pereira fights how he fought Ankle Live the first time, you know, and like gives him that respect and like gives him space, he's gonna lose 100%. You know, also said his left hook's a great striking pro. It's something he needs to use in this fight. I do think he could catch Ciryl Gane with the left hook if he has a good pressure behind it, because Ciryl Gane's hands are pretty low. Now those are his pros. Like I think everyone knows most of these pros. You know, it's not like you're hearing anything groundbreaking. Here's his cons, and I feel like when I'm saying his cons out loud, you're going to realize, holy shit, Pereira does this, and I never really noted that. The reason I'm saying that is because there's some things I always like wondered what makes Pereira do some weird things, but when I'm watching his footage, I watched a lot. I watched damn near all his fights, primarily against like the good strikers, and there's habits I've realized he did that are not good, that can be exploited. I only put 2 things here which seem like insignificant, but they're actually very significant for a fight like this. First thing, open guard stance. He's susceptible to blitz and straights. He stands with a very open guard, like an open guard. This helps him get the hooks off faster, but it also leaves openings for straight punches and blitzes. That's why he struggled so much in the Khalil Rountree fight, and that's why I knew he was going to struggle in the Khalil Rountree fight, because Khalil Rountree is not only a southpaw, which gives him troubles, but also on top of that, he's somebody who blitzes in. So that's why I knew before that fight that he was going to win, but he's going to go through hell the first 2 rounds. I made a whole video saying that, you know. Also the straights. Since you have an open guard, you have people like Ankalaev who are able to just land fire 1-2s. If you guys remember, Israel Adesanya had a lot of success when he just stuck a jab out there and followed through with the 2, because for some reason his open guard is like he wants people to hit him straight, but but that also could help him counter or time a check hook. For example, when Yuri was coming in one of those fights, the second fight I believe it was, he ran into like a left hook, because when you have an open guard stance, you do let the hooks fly faster, because you're like throwing it from the hip almost, and it just feels more comfortable for Pereira. Also, I said this: feints pause his movement. Feints pause his movement. Feints pause his movement. Now, you guys are probably like, what does that even mean? Now, a lot of people are like wondering why. Like, you guys remember that little Ankalaev thing where like Pereira like looked like he was about to switch stance or about to commit to something, and he like stopped halfway? Is because in that thing, Ankalaev was doing something noticeable when he had done something like this, little feint that made Pereira stop throwing what he was about to throw, and then Ankalaev caught him with a 1-2. It's caused by feints or like straights. I've noticed that it makes him like stop what he's doing and almost like wait and panic a little bit. I've noticed that multiple times in his fights. Like sometimes it just seems like he's just standing there like this. Against Ankalaev, it happened a lot more times. Sometimes Ankalaev would throw combos and like Pereira almost pauses while he's throwing the combos, takes the punches, and then tries to come back right after the combos. It's a bit weird, but I notice he sometimes just pauses in his movement. I said feints cause it, but it's not only feints. It's either it's feints that cause it, or if you double up a jab or something, it causes it, or if you stick a jab in his face, it causes it. He just has weird moments where he just pauses in the middle of his action when he feels a little bit overwhelmed, or he feels a little bit confused of what's coming at him in the striking realm. And it's one of those things that I feel like everyone knows he does, but no one really knows the cause to it. I'm not trying to say it's only caused by feints, but I've noticed majority of the time, if you do feint against him, he almost pauses what he's doing. I've seen Izzy, like when he was feint, and this is the second fight they had in UFC 287. Izzy would like feint low kicks or feint something, and Pereira would just stand there like this, almost like, oh shit, what's he gonna do? Like almost panicked, overly defensive minded, because he knows he has an open guard and he's like so cautious of what's coming after him. So he's someone who does feint in his move, who does pause in his movements temporarily, but someone who has good straights can exploit that. And I feel like that's a big con that I feel like a lot of people hear about, but they don't really know why he doesn't. And that's the best way I can explain it. I know I didn't do the best job explaining it, but like it's usually something caused by feints or like combos or something that just makes him feel overwhelmed in presence. So that's something I'm gonna put as a con. I also do think if you have power, like I noticed after Ankalaev hit him with a good 1-2, he was a lot more cautious and he was like pausing in his movement a lot more when Ankalaev would do feints to him, because he would just bite on every single one of them. So that's a big cons. They're only 2 cons, but they're very big, especially in a fight like this. Moving on to Ciryl Gane though, let's go through his pros first. Jab. I put jab in caps because it's his best weapon. I also put in parentheses plus straight punches, but his jab is his best weapon, his most used weapon, I'd say. He's also southpaw, but he also does switch stances a lot. But he's a primary southpaw. When he's letting go of most of his combos, he's gonna throw it from southpaw. But he could also throw something that starts in southpaw, then switch over to orthodox and then exit out of there before you can even touch him. I said hand fighting and eye pokes, which are huge. People think it's rage bait or jokes when I say eye pokes. Guys, I genuinely believe that some fighters have eye pokes like in their game plan. Like I swear that they do it to like prevent getting hit. Like you guys think I'm joking, but I swear to you guys, I believe Ciryl Gane does it. Am I saying it's intentional? A little bit. That's all I'm gonna say. But hand fighting is big, specifically for Alex Pereira. Now, when I was watching back Alex Pereira footage, I noticed Israel Adesanya in the I think the 5th round, when he was getting overrun by Alex Pereira's pressure, Izzy would do something where you just grab the wrist and it would make Pereira pause again. That's something else that makes Pereira pause I didn't even touch on. You grab his wrist, he doesn't know what to do because he's so used to kickboxing with big gloves. So when you have the whole imp, like you could grab his wrist, he kind of pauses. Izzy would do that and it would kind of stifle Pereira and make him very uncomfortable. Ciryl Gane does that a lot, actually. He would stick his arms out a lot and like try to grab wrist control, which actually leads to him eye poking some people. So I think those ones are accidental, but he does that and it pauses people, and it's huge in a fight like this because Alex Pereira hates that and it does pause his movement. Ciryl Gane is the type to grab your wrist, throw a low kick or do something like that. I could see him doing it against, I could see Ciryl Gane doing it against Alex Pereira and just grabbing the wrist and throwing a low kick or grabbing the wrist and throwing a push kick. That's something Ciryl Gane does noticeably and something that Alex Pereira also struggles with noticeably. So I hope you guys all have that down. There's some pros and cons that align with each other. These are one of them, where the pros of Ciryl Gane can exploit the cons of Alex Pereira. Next, I said oblique, teep, or push kicks, also put in parentheses the step in knee, etc. He has motions or movements where like he kind of throws the push, anything that pushes you away from him or like keeps you at bay. A lot of it's obliques, a lot of it's teeps, but like some of them are even push kicks to the face. He's just really good with that. And I feel like that's something that Alex Pereira has shown that he doesn't really like. I remember sometimes Ink Alive would throw a push kick and just send Alex flying backwards. Those things like kind of take a lot out of your endurance because you just took a big blow and suddenly you're almost falling on your ass, I think those are something annoying that Pereira doesn't usually go through, specifically obliques. I don't think Alex Pereira ever went against someone who throws that much obliques. Khalil Rountree actually does throw obliques, but he kind of abandoned that against Pereira and kind of did primarily boxing that whole time. But I feel like I don't feel like I know Ciryl Gane's going to come out. He's going to throw his obliques. He's going to throw his push kicks. He's going to throw his teep kicks. That's just how he fights. And I feel like that's going to be a problem for Alex Pereira that he might have to get through using his pressure. Last but not least, his pros is his movement. He's so hard to hit clean. Watching this Francis Ngannou fight, he does so much though, but like he does a good job keeping that pace. Like even in the 5th round, I skipped to the 5th round against Ngannou Ciryl. After all that wrestling and stuff, he still moves pretty cleanly and he's still hard to catch cleanly. People have caught him because, like I said, his movement's so sporadic. So you can catch him. I've seen people do it and drop him off it. But it just seems like when some of these guys are in front of him, they must be seeing something that I just don't see because his movement, I think, is also not just a pro, but I'm actually going to click the next slide now, is also a con because he uses it to slow things down and people kind of fall into the lull of it. Alex Pereira, it's your choice to let him slow down. When you see him doing all the sporadic movement, don't fall into the lull of just like sitting in front of him and kind of moving with him and letting him take the break because he'll jab your face off all day if you let him let that happen. His jab's great. His jab's thudding. His jab's damaging. I remember against Tom Aspinall, his nose was bleeding quickly. He just looked uncomfortable because every single time Ciryl Gane threw that jab, it was money. And then he'll go back to the movement, the crazy sporadic movement. You throw a combo at him, he's everywhere, man. He's everywhere trying to evade it and just not get hit by it. It's so like energy inducing. It really is. I don't know how he hasn't like really fatigued badly. I also said his defense is too reliant on head movement in his feet. Like he doesn't actually like know how to slip and rip cleanly like Alex Pereira does. I feel like his defense is just so reliant on his feet and his head. And that inevitably is going to slow down. It just is. It's going to slow down, and I know it will because I've seen it slow down. But even then, he's still, in the 5th round, he's still sporadically moving his body, But I don't think he could stand for 25 minutes with Alex Pereira. I will say that, which brings me to my striking comparison. I think Gane likely controls the fight early using his jab and his movement, but I think Pereira's low kicks inevitably will slow down Ciryl Gane. That movement that we know he loves to do so much. I know Ciryl Gane ate a lot of low kicks in Volkov and kind of looked unfazed, but I feel like Alex Pereira is going to try to melt him with it. I'm sure they're going to go low kick for low kick, I know Pereira doesn't really like low kicks either, so it should be interesting how that goes. I remember Pereira after the Izzy fight saying something like, oh, his best weapon is his low kicks. Those are so painful. He probably should have never said that because he's so stone-faced you can't tell the low kicks are bothering him. But I know Ciryl Gane probably knows or probably seen that interview as well, so he's probably going to try to hammer those low kicks. I said the pressure of Alex likely fatigues Gane. I'm saying that because, like I said about Gane, his movement's too flashy. You can't fight like that for 25 minutes against a seasoned kickboxer, and this is the first seasoned kickboxer standing in front of, which is a problem for you because you're not used to someone with this pace and presence and this intelligent kickboxing in front of you. You haven't seen it before. So now that you see it for the first time, are you going to fold? Are you going to fatigue? I think you might. I honestly think you might. So I'm actually saying objectively Pereira is a better striker. I wasn't saying this before the fight though, or before the footage. Before I watched footage, I was certain that Ciryl Gane was just the better striker objectively. But now when I really think about it, is that Ciryl Gane has a good weapon. Like, he has a good jab, but he very rarely follows up with combos like 1-1-2s, like Ankalaev. He's not like known for like a good 1-2 like Ankalaev. He's kind of just known for that jab and movement. He has good kicks. But like, if he's going to go kick for kick with Alex Pereira, it's tough to beat him in that aspect, man. Even the UFC 287 rematch with Izzy. I know Izzy had a torn or like a strained MCL going into that, which is what probably compromises like quicker. But like, Pereira will go kick for kick with you, and he's not good. It's hard to outpoint him the way you do with these other blob heavyweights, you know. So I don't know why I believe Ciryl Gane was the better striker prior, but he's not, you know. And I think that if it's a 25-minute striking match only, Alex Pereira will win. I wasn't saying that before, but I'm saying that after, and you should probably agree with me, because if I change my opinion on something like that, it's because I picked up on a lot of things watching footage, and I did, and I watched a lot of footage. Like I said, I was up late night. If I get this pick wrong, I'll be a bit disappointed, like, at the end of the day, because, like, I hate when I do this. It hasn't happened yet, me watching this much footage. You know, I haven't watched this much as like Max Charles, because when fights are this close, man, you have to go the extra mile and watch this shit. So I'm telling you right now, Pereira's the better striker. I gotta say it. You know, I know he's at heavyweight, he's gonna be a little bit slower, but all those things considered, I still think striking wise he's better, which is very important for me to say. Moving on to the grappling pros and cons, we're gonna start off with Alex Pereira, and grappling will be used in this fight. I'll put money on it now. Grappling pros, takedown defense seemingly improved. I'm saying this because there's a point where everyone who tried to take him down took him down easily. And then the Ankalaev fight, Ankalaev couldn't really take down Alex, you know. So, and since then, like, when people shoot on him, he just seems stronger. He seems like he has more balance. I remember Jan Blachowicz was grabbing a single leg and just tipping him over. He seems more balanced. Izzy was just kind of body locking him, turning the corner and taking him down. I was like, okay, anyone can really take this guy down, but he seems like he has his base under him a lot better, you know, especially regarding the Ankalaev fight. Maybe I'm taking a lot or too much from the Ankalaev fight, but I do recall Ankalaev struggling pretty badly to take him down. And objectively, Ankalaev is a better wrestler than Ciryl Gane, you know, and maybe even a Jan Blachowicz, because Ankalaev was the one who took down Jan Blachowicz. So I'd say that his takedown defense is improved, so I think that's something to note. However, what it is cons, complacent on the fence in the clinch, and this is huge, and this is so important, guys. I've noticed when Izzy had Pereira on the fence, Pereira was almost just like bitching about it because he couldn't. He's like, "Come on, get him off me. Why you holding me on the fence, nigga? If you don't get your grown ass man back off that fence, talking about why you on me." Like, it's not just that fight against Ankalaev. He did the same thing. He get controlled, and then I remember after the fight, he was like, "Oh man, all he did was hold me against the fence for 25 minutes," which is not even true. But my problem is, stop letting people hold you on the fence. And I'm saying it's important here because I'm going to talk about it. Like, Ciryl Gane will hold you on the fence. We're going to talk about that when I get to his pros and cons. But it's just a little bit stupid how he's so complacent on the fence, and that could be something big used by Ciryl Gane if he does fatigue in this fight. Because Ciryl Gane's a pretty strong guy, big guy, might be the strongest guy physically that he's been held against the fence by. So I'm saying right now, being complacent on the fence is not good. Then I said takedown defense, ... I know I put it as a pro, but then again, I got to tell you guys, like, I can't ignore the fact that he got taken out very easy by a lot of people, and he's going to be in a bigger weight class. I don't know if his takedown defense is going to improve, or if he's just doing more striking this camp. You know, maybe he was doing more wrestling the Ankalaev camp for whatever reason, and that led to him being better, but maybe he's going back to striking only like he does most of his camps, and now he's going to get taken out a lot easier by Ciryl Gane, who I do think is going to wrestle. So I said takedown defense ... because it might be a pro because it's getting better, but it's at the end of the day, you're still Alex Pereira. I don't trust you when defending takedowns. Last but not least, lost on the ground. When Izzy took him down, he controlled him for the whole round. Nigga, Ciryl Gane, bro. And Izzy looked so lost on the fucking feet. I can't lie. Like, so lost. Jan Blachowicz took him down. He spent like damn near the whole rest of the rounds on his back. Looked flat. Looked like a fish out of water. You know, some people get taken down and they're on their back and they're just looking up, looking so lost. That's how he looked, or like almost like on their back, throwing body shots on the ground. Like, that's how he looks on the ground, you know. And I haven't seen him on the ground against Ankalaev because he defended well. But how would he look on the ground? I don't know if he's that much improved. I know he trains with Glover. Trust me, I take that into consideration, you know. But I'm telling you right now, I do think if Ciryl Gane gets on top of him, it's game over for that round. I do think Ciryl Gane can control him for the majority of the round. So these are cons that are very important because I do think this is going to be a grappling fight. Maybe more grappling heavy than a lot of people go. This actually might go down as a boring fight at the end of the fight. It could go the distance, and it could be a grapple fest by Ciryl Gane, which brings you to the Ciryl Gane's pros and cons. Sneaky BJJ, you know, takedowns are oddly decent, and he uses clinch to his benefit well. So I'm saying sneaky BJJ because when he does have these moments on the ground, like Volkov, Francis Ngannou, he'll like grab a leg lock or like use his great BJJ to force something good, or force a stand up, or force a reversal, or like even had some submissions early in his career. Then I have to say takedowns are already decent. I remember sometimes you would time a takedown on Volkov, a 6'7" strong heavyweight, and it would take him down, and then from there you're controlling pretty well. That's going to be a problem because I think he can time a takedown from Alex Pereira, especially if Alex Pereira falls into the love of Ciryl Gane's a next generation kickboxer. He's just going to stand and trade with him. I really do think Ciryl Gane can win this fight pretty simply off of wrestling. I do think he could take down Alex Pereira and control him pretty well and put him in some scary submission threats. Also said he uses the clinch to his benefit well. There are times Ciryl Gane will clinch and try to hold you against the fence, and the fact that Alex Pereira is so complacent on the fence is what makes me more worrisome for that situation happening again. So I'm saying right now, man, it's going to be tough It's going to be tough for Pereira if he just thinks it's going to be a striking-only fight, because I do think that not only is Ciryl Gane going to shoot takedowns, but even if you stuff it, he's going to try to work you against the fence in the clinch. He's not going to just try to let you go and let you just go back to striking-only. He is going to mix it up, and he has had fights where he's mixed it up for 5 rounds straight, striking and wrestling. So I'm not really worried too much about him fatiguing. It depends about how much Alex Pereira can get to his legs and make him shoot lazy takedowns or something, but I do think his takedowns are already better than people think. What are his cons? He plays BJJ, but I don't think it means anything in this fight. I'm saying he plays BJJ because sometimes he's on his back going for leg locks and he's not even using it to get to his feet. He's just trying to play BJJ, trying to grab a submission. That's bad usually if you're going against someone who's just a better grappler or someone who's, I don't know, you could easily outstrike on the feet, but you just want to play BJJ. Shouldn't be a problem in this fight. I actually think him playing BJJ could be more of a pro, but I'm going to put it as a con because it just wastes time in my opinion. So against someone good, against Aspinall, that'd be dumb. Say Aspinall took him down and he was just playing BJJ trying to go for a leg lock instead of trying to get up. That could just lead him to being on the bottom, trying to wrap up submissions that just won't work and is going to waste time. Neither here or there. How did the grappling compare to each other? I said on everything, Gane will wrestle. I'm so certain Gane will wrestle, especially after looking at footage and looking at how willing Gane sometimes is to actually wrestle in situations where he feels uncomfortable on the feet. I do feel like in the Volkov 2 fight, he felt a bit uncomfortable sometimes with Volkov's length, so he was shooting those takedowns, So he's not dumb. He's not someone who's gonna get outstruck or get a little bit annoyed on the feet or get out get some low kicks landed on him and just keep striking, hoping he's the better striker. He is someone who will mix in wrestling when the opportunity presents himself. And I said I see Gane controlling Alex on the fence. Like I said earlier, Alex is too complacent on the fence. Wastes too much time complaining that someone's holding him against the fence instead of trying to get off the fence, which is not a good thing. It's happened too much times for me to just think it wouldn't happen again. I said Alex likely gets taken down as well. I just want people to know he's going to get taken down in this fight. I could put any amount of money on that. Then I said Gane leg lock attempt or sub attempt. He's going to try to attempt some kind of sub when he gets him on the ground. He's going to try to create some weird scramble and try to go for a leg. I hope he doesn't try to pull guard or something and go for a leg lock on some Walter Walker shit. But I do think the grappling comparison is important in this fight because I do think it's a big part of Ciryl Gane's game that no one's actually talking about in this one. All that being said, let's get into some paths to victory for both guys. For Pereira, he has to use the low kick and counter the jab. Like I said, Ciryl Gane's going to come with the jab. That little slip and rip that I talk about that Pereira does, he needs to try to time that with Ciryl Gane because Gane is going to just jab and jab. And it's damaging. It's one of those jabs they cause damage on the people's face, That could avert your eyesight. It can make your nose bleed. It could just make you uncomfortable. Getting hit with a good jab multiple times back to back, it kind of just messes with the mind, So I said if he uses low kicks and counters the jab, it could be a problem. Use the low kick to stop the movement of Ciryl Gane, and try to counter that jab he's going to try to do. Also said stay on the pressure. Don't let Ciryl Gane just start dancing in front of you, then you start pausing in front of you. You don't have time to do that. You got to put it on him, man. You got to stay on his face, stay in the, keep pressuring him. Don't let him get comfortable because if Ciryl Gane gets comfortable and you allow him to get comfortable, that's when he's the most damaged and that's when he's the most dangerous. And actually, that's when he's going to start to throw combos. He's not heavy on the combos, but if he starts to jab you, dance around, you just let him dance around you, then he's going to start to follow up 1-2-3s and 1-2-3-4s and then finish with a push kick. So stay on the pressure. Don't let him get confident because objectively you're a better striker, especially if you keep that pressure and keep going forward. Stuff the takedowns, a big one, because I do think takedowns are coming. Make sure you're just stuffing those takedowns. So make sure you can make it like the ankle laugh fight, but don't be complacent against the fence. So not just stuff the takedowns and get off the fence. Then trust your left hook. I do think Ciryl Gane can lean into a left hook, or I do think Ciryl Gane can get caught with a left hook. His hands are low sometimes. He's a little bit too sporadic with his movement. If you pressure him the right way, then land a left hook, it could be a problematic thing, and you could hurt and maybe finish Ciryl Gane. So those are his path to victory. If I'm Ciryl Gane, that's what I'm telling him. Use his jab, use your jab, use your teep, and use your movement. Now keep jabbing him. If he's gonna let you, just keep jabbing him. Use your teep if he's coming overly bearing with the pressure. Don't let him just back you into a corner. Use your teep kicks, use your movement. Use hand fighting when you get pressured. If you feel overwhelmed like Izzy, go ahead and grab those hands like you usually do. Try to hand fight him, get him out the way. Maybe hand fight him into a push kick, hand fighting him into a low kick. Do something with your hands to like kind of confuse him. Use your hands, feint maybe, make him pause and land a 1-2 down the middle. You gotta just make Pereira react. Don't make Pereira comfortable, because if you make Pereira comfortable, he's gonna start teeing off on you. So keep the jab in his face, keep the movement, and keep the hand fighting, and mix in wrestling. You need to. If you don't mix in wrestling, I don't think you could beat Alex Pereira for 25 minutes. I just don't believe it. I don't need to believe it. Why would I believe that after watching footage of like how Pereira looks objectively better in his striking? You're a bit too sporadic. I don't think you could hold that sporadic energy for 25 minutes against Alex Pereira, especially if he's on that continuous pressure. So if I'm Ciryl Gane, I'm doing this jab, teeping, movement, use the push kicks, hand fighting when pressure, and mixing the wrestling. And if I'm Pereira, low kick, counter the jab, stay on the pressure, stuff the takedowns, trust that left hook. My prediction, and then I put this note, can he follow logic? Now, I'm going to try to base this off of logic. On the pros and cons, there's a lot of pros that Ciryl Gane has that will exploit some cons of Alex Pereira. My thing about Ciryl Gane, after watching footage, I came to the realization he uses a lot of movement, and I don't feel like that movement's going to be as prevalent against Alex Pereira, because I do feel like Alex Pereira can take away some of that movement by throwing some low kicks and landing some low kicks, As far as the boxing is concerned, Ciryl Gane's boxing is not that impressive. Like, I feel like with Alex Pereira, like, when he gets exposed sometimes in the hands, like by Ankalaev, he was exposed because Ankalaev had a good 1-2. Like, I don't think Ciryl Gane has a great 1-2. Like, he has a great 1, but like he usually doesn't really follow up with the 2, And if he was known for a speedy 1-2, I trust that a bit more. He does have some straight shots down the middle that can cause problems, but I don't think it's something that sticks out to paper that much on me, which is why I feel like after watching Ciryl Gane striking, I was like, I think Pereira's a better striker. I think if they go straight kickboxing, I do have a feeling that Alex Pereira could overwhelm him. The hand fighting and stuff by Ciryl Gane, he does it, but like I feel like I'm relying on him to do that a bit too much. So I don't think he's going to do that as much in this one. As for the wrestling, I do believe that Ciryl Gane could take him down. I do believe that Ciryl Gane can make his life live in hell. But then again, Alex Pereira has shown me that lately he's been improving his takedown defense. Fuck, this one's hard, dude. He's been improving his takedown defense. Maybe it's because he had a stronger camp to defend the takedowns, because he knew to defend Ankalaev, because maybe he thought Ankalaev was Dagestani, so he's going to just wrestle or something, and maybe he's less worried about that there, so he trained it less, so now he's not going to see it coming as much. In the clinch, I do think Ciryl Gane's pretty active in the clinch strikes. This is a tough one. See, I don't know what to follow. See that note told me follow logic, because if I follow my gut, honestly, I think my gut's telling me Alex Pereira though. Hypothetically speaking, if I am following logic here, why did I put that note? Because I made this like at 4 a.m. last night. Why did I put that note? I'm assuming because I do think, okay, Pereira's a better striker. Ciryl Gane's a better grappler. And I do think Ciryl Gane's going to grapple. However, I am relying on Ciryl Gane to use the grappling. Maybe more so than he usually does. And I am relying on Pereira to do what exactly? Kind of fight like how he always fights, So it seems like I'm relying on Ciryl Gane to do a bit more, like hand fighting when he's pressured. He's going to use his jabs and teeps and movement. That's how he always does. I'm relying on him to do a little bit more than he normally does, where I feel like I'm relying on Pereira to do a little bit less, and by that logic, I've come to the realization that I can't rely on fighters to just do something, that isn't a blueprint of what they usually do. If Alex Pereira loses to Ciryl Gane, he probably couldn't find the chin and probably was complacent against defense and probably got taken down a little bit. If Ciryl Gane loses to Alex Pereira, he probably got pressured a bit too much. The low kick slowed down his movement. Oh, fuck, dude. Oh, my God. This is hard for me. Oh my God. Cause I never watched this much footage and got a fight wrong. I can't start now, man. I can't. I This would be me changing my prediction. Every time I change my prediction on fight week, it goes left. This one's a tough one. I really believe this is the epitome of 50-50 because it's just like, it's just so tough for either guy to win. I do think Alex Pereira, fighting like Alex Pereira, though, I feel like if both guys fight like how they usually fight, I feel like that could actually favor Alex Pereira. And just the fact that Ciryl Gane isn't used to someone like Alex Pereira is interesting. Like, he's not used to fighting a striker like Alex Pereira. You fought Tom Aspinall, but he's more balls to the wall. He's not as smart. He's not as like accurate. He's just not as good as Alex Pereira objectively in the striking realm. He's just not. Ciryl Gane usually wrestles as almost like oh, you want to wrestle me? I could show you how BJJ. But fucking hell. But at the end of the day, when I started watching this footage, I found myself surprised about how I actually don't think Ciryl Gane is as good as I think he is. That being said, I'm officially going Alex Pereira. I do think Alex Pereira has what it takes to beat Ciryl Gane, and I do think Alex Pereira is going to be successful against Ciryl Gane. It's not easy, and it won't be, but no fight's easy at that level. But I do think if you're moving up to heavyweight, you might lose a little bit of speed, but you're still the more intelligent striker. And I don't know if I could trust Ciryl Gane to go in there and grapple as much as I think he might need to in order to beat Alex Pereira. Therefore, I think Alex Pereira will be successful at UFC Freedom 250. I got Alex Pereira defeating Ciryl Gane by knockout or by points. You probably thought I was going to pick Alex Pereira, and I did too, until I rewatched my review and my breakdown, and I was making a big mistake. And I blame myself for the order I watched the footage in. The last fight I did watch was the Ankalaev fight with Pereira, the second fight. And I was looking at the pressure of Alex Pereira in that fight. And you know how I was putting down pressure and presence as one of his biggest pros? I think I'm overestimating the amount of pressure he truly needs to beat Ciryl Gane. Because when I look back at the Adesanya fight at UFC 287, he didn't have that same pressure. It was a lot more push and pull, and like he let Izzy dictate a good amount of times. Same with the fight. Even against Yair Prochazka, he wasn't crazy on the presence. Even against Khalil Roundtree, he had push and pull. Khalil Roundtree, I will say he had more presence than usual. I do think that's because he had a significant height advantage. But that pressure and presence that he needs to beat Ciryl Gane, on average, he doesn't have that usually. He's actually not as much as a pressure forward fighter as maybe you would think. He starts to pressure forward more so when he feels like someone's fading and he needs to do it. Like in the fifth round against Izzy, that was the most pressure he had in that entire fight, which leads me to believe Ciryl Gane's going to win. So I'm actually going to switch my pick or keep my pick originally to what I thought was Ciryl Gane. I was actually even watching Ciryl Gane and Francis Ngannou right after I recorded that video just to make sure I can guarantee this pick. And the way that Ciryl Gane was able to avoid those shots, keep the pace for 5 rounds straight against a bigger, stronger guy, and even mix in wrestling against Francis Ngannou when Francis Ngannou had overwhelming pressure and try to bully him with his presence, he would just shoot a takedown to keep him off him. And that's important. Yes, Francis Ngannou stuffed those takedowns. I don't know if Alex Pereira will. I think Ciryl Gane's objectively a better fighter. I do kind of stand by my point that maybe Alex Pereira might be a better striker on paper, but I feel like Ciryl Gane just has too many weapons mixing with the clinch striking, the other striking, and the wrestling option. I feel like he has too many options, and then I feel like Alex Pereira going up to heavyweight is going to just be a little bit enough to diminish him. So I am going to actually officially pick Ciryl Gane, and I actually do think that's the right pick, and I'm actually very confident in that pick. I actually had a weird feeling in my stomach after I finished that video and clicked end, but now I'm telling you right now, I'm very confident in myself in this prediction. I did the footage work. It's not going to be easy still, but I do think that I almost feel like a sigh of relief now that I was like, because I almost just fucked up that pick. And every time I switch my picks on fight week, it goes left. I'm not doing it again, guys. I do believe Ciryl Gane will actually defeat Alex Pereira, and I'm sticking by it. Alex Pereira won't have enough presence and pressure to beat him. Ciryl Gane might actually be the guy who pressures him initially, and then if he does ever feel overwhelmed, he does have that wrestling option, unfortunately. And I do think that's enough to get him a win on a 5-round decision against Alex Pereira. I wouldn't even be surprised if this is a boring fight. I think Ciryl Gane's going to get it done. And my official pick is Ciryl Gane. Viva la France. Viva la France, whatever that means. That's it for me. Let me know your thoughts down below. God bless, brother. Bye. Let's see who wins. 2, 3, 4.